Welcome back. This is part 2 of Elizabeth introducing her book to you, The Samurai Reiki Master, in person. And we left off last time in part 1 with the dream and what happened when I returned to Japan another 6 months or so later in 1994. And when I first stepped foot on Japanese soil, or Osaka, as in Kansai at that time, but mainly in Kyoto. And an event took place in 1994. But I'll stop there for a little moment. And I'd like to give you some background on my own spiritual journey that led me to Reiki in the first place. I think that's kind of really relevant, especially in trying to give you my background and being able to understand Reiki in a different way. I already had established a very profound meditation practice, a daily meditation practice twice daily, the transcendental meditation practice as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. That was back in the early 80s. And then I also learned the TM-Sidha's program as well, which is the more advanced meditation technique taught by Maharishi as well. And so that gave me a very, very, very profound spiritual practice. I looked into studying Ayurveda and practiced Ayurvedic principles in my diet as best I could, following the diets recommended for ancient Ayurvedic keeping the body in balance with the Vata, Pitta and the Kapha, eating the foods in that way and selecting and cooking foods. And hence why I studied a lot of Hare Krishna cooking, even though it's a little different to what the Maharishi style of cooking demands. But the beautiful Indian vegetarian cooking is superb nonetheless. So So with Maharishi, I also started to study Sanskrit because I had travelled to India the first time and didn't know very much about Indian scripture per se. So when I got back, I started to read a book called the Srimad Bhagavatam. Some of you may have even read it yourself. I doubt it though, or you may know it in another one of its parts. It's also contains the Bhagavad Gita, as we know, which is about the talk between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, one of the Pandava brothers, the archer. Bhagavad Gita is the song of the Lord. And also it has the entire Mahabharata. That's a very long, epic, journey of the forces of the white people and the forces of the dark, the Pandavas and the Kashya. I can't remember the other name now. Anyway, it's quite an epic book to read. And it says if you can read this book in Sanskrit from cover to cover in 1 week, then you'll get instant enlightenment. Well, I never did it in 1 week. It was impossible. I couldn't read Sanskrit that well for a start, but I certainly did it in English, but still not in a week. But it was a challenge, and I'm glad I read it because I really learned a lot about all sorts of things. on religion and history right around the world just by reading that one book that was so much like, uh, well, it was the actual stories in it were told by Veda Vyasa, narrated by Veda Vyasa, the great Rishi. And he told the story to Ganesh, who was his scribe. And that's why Ganesh, the statue of Ganesh, the elephant god, has got a broken tooth. And he used his tooth to scribe the Vedas that Veda Vyasa told Ganesha. And so he wrote it all down. And that's when it's first become a written text. And one of those is, of course, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, just as a little bit of a side talk there. On my third trip to India, though, which was longer than my first two trips to India after I'd learned TM, I was approached by a couple of other siddhas who had learnt the TM-Sidha's program with me, but were living in Adelaide and Melbourne. And they said, "Oh, Liz, we hear you're going to India. Do you mind if we tag along and you act as our guide?" And I said, "Oh, okay, you go where I go, travel where I go," kind of thing. And so we went together. Anyhow, I was introduced to Reiki this way. And in leaving them, I said, yes, I will learn Reiki when I get back. I'll look into it when I get back to Sydney, which was going to be a couple of more months' time. Anyway, I got back to Sydney eventually, and I contacted a Reiki teacher in my local area. Just happened to find one in a sort of a local magazine in Sydney. And I connected with her because she had a connection with India too, and Gurumai Chitalasananda, who was another one of my favourites, saints that I wanted to visit in India when I was on my journey there just a few months before. Anyway, I also met up that same time talking about connecting with divine saints and entities. I also met up with Sai Baba, with the big black fuzzy curly hair down in Whitefields in Bangalore. Looked at him really intensely. I thought, I don't know about you, but gee whiz. I went to the temple of Tirupati in Timula, and that is quite an amazing place if you ever get to go to that temple in South India. Just say Tirupati, and you'll just say, yes, I believe in Lord Vishnu, and you'll have the most amazing inner sanctum temple experience you'll ever get in India anywhere. And why I bring these up, I also talk about Deverahababaji. He was the great sage of longevity who was actually recorded in history as living on the riverbanks for over 250 years. And he was well visited by Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, the prime ministers, elected prime ministers of India in the 60s and 70s, both assassinated, by the way. And he was the very first saint I'd met anywhere, let alone in India. The very first day I was in India, well, we went on a journey and I met this being. And every year from that moment, I kept going back and calling in and saying hi to and I always get a nice audience welcome, with him. I just enjoyed sitting there in his energy field. But one year he was at the Kumbh Mela and I couldn't get to him, so I got really tested and I had to go back again to the Kumbh Mela because I missed him the first time. So I got back to Delhi and off I jaunted back again to say, I'm not going to miss you because his energy was so powerful. Even just for a few minutes, just to be in his energy was, well, I don't know how to talk about it, but I still am today to you. So this is this old man who sits in a yoga posture that you'll see on a lot of my YouTubes. And he took his Mahasamadhi about 4 months after I returned from India in 1990. So his that particular photo was actually given to me by a man by the name of Captain Sharma, and Captain Sharma was a pilot, educator, and what do you call an aviation educator, taught Rajiv Gandhi how to fly an airplane, a Boeing 747 sort of type plane. And they were very, very good friends. And Rajiv also was quite a photographer. So you had to have special permission to get a photo or even take a photo of Deverahababaji, who actually had to ask his permission beforehand. You couldn't just go up to Deverahababaji, as I personally found out, and just take a snap because you would have blank, nothing on it. But anyway, so this is why this particular photo is so rare and so hard and so worshipped by the Indians, but also for the fact of how it came to me. You know, it came from Rajiv Gandhi's camera to Captain Sharma, his friend and teacher of Air India, and then to me because I really appreciated Captain Sharma, and it was a gift to me after he himself had died after I'd left my first year. So that's how I ended up with this beautiful picture. And they call it it's a darshan picture. That means for some people they can actually get the energy of the guru from that picture. And this is the why India is so very much after the original that's in my house, not the one that they can get on. I've put on my Facebook page that you could easily get, which they're actually making posters of it now and selling them so that you can get various poster sizes. And it's my photos that's being used for it. Well, that's what happens. You just got to be careful what you put out there. Huh? Okay, I've diverged again. Sorry. Another powerful saint that I met in India in 1990 was also Mother Teresa, a uniquely well-known, powerful woman, Christian woman, who gave her entire life serving the poor in India, in the streets of Calcutta. Most of her life there. She worked in other areas prior to getting to Calcutta, of course, and founded her own convent, the Order of the Sisters of Charity, of the Missions of Charity. I'm sorry, the Missions of Charity in Calcutta, India. I was determined in 1990 to meet Mother Teresa. In fact, that was the peak of my mission of travelling to India in the first place. I said to a very good friend of mine, Sister Claire, who was Sister Administrator of the Sisters of Charity in Sydney, St Vincent's, I'm determined to meet Mother Teresa, and I'm going to. And she said, oh, Liz, she said, even the Pope of Rome has trouble getting an appointment to meet or talk to Mother Teresa. What makes you think you're going to get one? I said, well, I'll get one. You wait and see, because I'm determined to get it. Anyway, I'll leave that. That's a story in itself, but it was unique. But as I got to know all these different major energy, powerful, living saints in India while I was there, living beings, the best of them all that India had to offer. And I've only named a couple. And then I get home and I keep my promise and I learn Reiki. So my first Reiki experience was quite something because I was advised to not read anything on Reiki, or but not get anything much back then to read anyway, because I didn't have the internet and few people did. Anyway, so I just turned up and I was told to, had the initiation. Complete skeptic, absolutely a complete skeptic. Until I started, well, first off, the beam of white light that just came from the top crown of my head down to my body like a bright flash. Oh, that's interesting, quite warm, tingling. I was used to tingling in my hands anyway, but they seemed to all of a sudden trigger that too, because my hands were tingling from my TMC's energy that I didn't know what it was until I learned how to do a self treatment, and then with the Reiki class put my hands on other people and I went, wow, that's Reiki and that's what all that tingling's about. And I could, gee, I could actually see into the human body almost layer by layer, tissue by tissue. And I'm talking about this to a friend. Well, I didn't know he was a friend, but he became a long-term friend. Peter Tate is sitting beside me, and he was a TM-Sidha himself, a TM teacher, in fact. He and his wife and his son and all his family. So he knew what I was already gifted with my TM and the TMC's program, how powerful Reiki could be together. And then the two of them going effortlessly together actually gives you, it's like a melded, perfectly fitting glove. It's like having a perfect city handed to you. And you go, well, that's what it's all about, because they are both easy and effortless. You don't realize how hard that is to learn. Easy and effortless. They just melt together magically. And then you understand what power you hold in your hands. But not only that, you also hold that in your mind as well. If you've got a good meditation practice, which I think is sort of perhaps why I've grown so much with it. So when I started to use it in the class, I was blown away. And then the class finished and I went back to work. And where I worked was even more amazing confirmation, because I worked as a clinical nurse specialist in operating room triage or trauma surgery in emergency operating theatres at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in Sydney for about 10 years. So I looked after all emergency surgery that came in the door from anywhere from 8 o'clock till 8 o'clock the next morning, or sometimes longer or sometimes less. So it was a very demanding job, a very exciting role, and I loved it. So you got a lot of opportunity to just, without my really realizing it, use Reiki as I described in my book, how I did it. Three or four accounts that I actually did that went, wow, what was that? And other people actually observed it happening at the time. They saw me do it. They witnessed me have a reaction to it, like the bleeding would stop, or the breathing, or obstructed breathing would go and the intervention would cease and the patient would just wake up and look at you and as if though nothing had happened. Two out of those times anyway, they give you this look. So that's how I used Reiki in my life. I also believed in teaching Reiki to people who with nursing, you grow around the family a lot. And Takata always gave, and Vanya Twan always emphasized the priority of the family in Reiki. And the family also in many cultures means Nana, old Nana who is old and very fragile and not able to live with the family anymore. So I had a few friends, quite a few I found out, that had their Nana. One in particular I was very, very close to myself personally over a long period of time, which was Nana Banana, we called her, and she was 92. When she actually wanted to learn Reiki, and I was available to offer that to her, to be able to actually go to her bedside in where she lived in her facility, nursing home facility, and do her own Reiki 1 workshop with her daughter and her daughter's partner there visibly with her and involving some of the other nursing staff there at the same time, and Nana as just part and parcel of her day. It was one of the most beautiful workshops I ever did, and I did a series of these, and I think sometimes we forget that it's not all about being out there with setting up a wonderful treatment room and, advertising all that and then trying to change the picture of Usui to make him look more different to somebody else's picture of Usui. I mean, have you ever, seriously? I did this back in the 90s when I could first do a search on this Usui photo, that one we traditionally know. And I'm not trying to be mocking, but I'm just saying how amazing and what is the psychology behind all these changes, colours, shades, angles, sizes of the way his original picture has been distorted and displayed to make it look somehow stand out as different to somebody else's, and theirs has got a better one or something, or unique. I don't know. I've really lost the plot there, but that adds to the mystery of the Usui picture, the original one that we all identify as him because we were given that picture by somebody to say that that was Usui. But I've not been able, with my research, to be able to trace exactly who that somebody was or if there ever really was one, quite frankly. But then I explained that in my book, The Samurai Reiki Master. It's quite a unique little bit of mystery there, and it involved me asking a lot of questions to the original 22 teachers that Hawaii Takata taught, and they all gave reasonably good answers in writing back. So it really became even more a mystery as it got further when I got to copy and have a look at Mrs. Takata's own personal, private Reiki photo album given to me, handed to me personally, and then trusted to me by Phyllis Furumoto herself. But alas, that one picture of Dr. Maka Usui that we know as him was not present in that photo album, in the contents of that photo album. So there surrounds quite a mystery and a lot of questions around that. And there's a lot of answers too. So I've answered a few in my book of reasons and given you some comparisons. And I think James Deacon needs a really good pat on the back with his statement on his Reiki website, where he says, "Will the real Usui please stand up?" And there's about 6 tiny itty bitty photos of Usui and what he looks like over the years, and you could add a few more. Which one's who? and but I have to only focus here on my book, The Samurai Reiki Master, with the traditional photo of Dr. Mikao Usui that we've all come to identify as Dr. Usui of the Usui Shiki Ryoho, according to Chijiro Hayashi and Hawayo Takata, passed through down to me through Phyllis Lei Furumoto, etc. And that photo I also have loved the day I saw it for the first time. And I would like to share that moment with you. It's a very special